Yeah. Kshitij, can I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so thank you. So, hello everyone, Jai Bhim. Welcome to the sixth day of our Ambedkar Intellectual Summit. Today we gather to celebrate the enduring legacy and intellectual contribution of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a visionary leader, social reformer, and the architect of Indian Constitution. Throughout this summit, we have delved into the Dr. Ambedkar's profound ideas, exploring their relevance in today's world and how they continue to inspire positive change. Let us embark on his journey for enlightenment and discourse, honoring the ideals of equality, justice, and empowerment that Dr. Ambedkar champions throughout his life. We have finished 10 great sessions so far, and today we have with us a distinguished personality, uh, Mr. Gopal Guru, who will be sharing his thoughts on Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's conception on slavery. And without wasting much time, I would like to request Priyanshi to give a brief introduction of Mr. Gopal Guru, sir.
A very pleasant and progressive journey to everyone. My name is Priyanshi Daharia, and I am a content writer in Handicraft Education. Also, I'm pursuing Masters in Anthropology. Today, I would like to welcome you all in the 11th session of Ambedkar Intellectual Summit 2024. Here, Gopal Guru sir will discuss about Babasaheb Ambedkar's conception of slavery. He is associated with leading academic magazine, Economic and Political Weekly, in a position of editorial. He has written numerous articles and chapters on Dalit discourse, women, politics, and philosophy. He introduced critical theory to Dalit discourses, rethinking constructions, and fallout of Dalit identity in India. His work brings ethics back to theorizing and philosophizing Dalit discourses. He is retired professor in political science from JNU and had been visiting professor in Columbia, Oxford, Philadelphia, and Pennsylvania University. He's also been awarded from Malcolm Adisessia Award for distinguished contribution to developmental studies. Now I would like to hand over this meeting to Gopal Guru sir. Sir, please continue.
Thank you very much for your invitation, and I must thank Mangesh for his perseverance to get me to talk to you people this evening. And I'm happy to join all of you in celebrating Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's birth anniversary, which is actually happening after 2 days from now. I have a plan to speak only for 25 minutes, so maybe less than 25 minutes. Then I would like you people to really discuss more about my presentation, and we'll have a question and answer session. Is that fine? Because making more elaborate statement would really take more time, because I got 21 hours. So we'll have to finish talking and discussing within the given time. So let me therefore start my presentation. I would like to make about 4 to 5 points, and they will have some kind of a logical sequence within themselves. I would like to raise 2 points in the beginning. One point is that why we do not have good scholarly systematic work on Dr. Ambedkar's conception of slavery. This is one question which I am putting to all the participants who have joined this particular Zoom seminar. It will be very interesting to note that in the US context, we have got such a wide-ranging scholarship on slavery, starting from Frederick Douglass Du Bois to Orlando Patterson, Toni Morrison, and most importantly, Ginanki, who's the professor of English in Princeton University. Now, we do not have the same kind of elaborate, detailed scholarship on Babasaheb Ambedkar's conception of scholarship? Do we have? This is a poser. I may not have enough information, but as far as I can see, that we do not have any systematic account of the scholarship of Ambedkar on slavery. While we have the concern of slavery being raised by Dr. Ambedkar on every page of his writings, 23, 24 volumes we already have with us. But I have not come across any kind of detailed systematic account of Babasaheb's conception of slavery. If somebody has, please share with me, and I will rectify my own ignorance. Now, so therefore, I think what I am planning to do in this talk is to actually find out the possibility of conceptualizing the ideas of slavery that are there already available in the writings and speeches of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. This is not to suggest that we did not have any work on any ideas on slavery. We already know that right from Buddha onwards, we have scholars, and Buddha the thinker, he himself has raised concerns about slavery, and in his Digha Nikaya, and in the Buddhist literature in Digha Nikaya. So we have concerns expressed on slavery right from Lord Buddha onwards to Jyotirao Phule's Gulamgiri, and we have a number of autobiographical writings of Dalit writers who actually have done wonderful work on slavery. It has actually appeared in their own autobiographical accounts and narratives. All that is there. Well, no one denies that. But the question remains whether there is any conceptual work done on Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. This is one concern. That's why I said yes to Mangesh, and I volunteer to speak in this particular function. I would like to argue that the range of scholarship of Babasaheb is very, very wide. The canvas of his thinking on slavery is very, very wide. He has talked about slavery in a comparative mode, taking the view, taking the view right from Greek onwards through Roman slavery and to modern period. And he, along with Jyotirao Phule, has maintained the position that it is the exploration of the world by Columbus and his Columbus efforts to explore the world and make it possible for the European capitalists to conquer more and more worlds, more and more avenues of profit making. And this has been mentioned both by Phule and Ambedkar. We must particularly take due notice of this. Now, the expansion of imperialism, so to say, was not possible without the possibility of slavery, and that slavery actually is particular reference to the black slaves who were actually imported from African continent and other places into in the European countries and particularly the US. This is what Dr. Ambedkar has said. He is also making a very interesting and very insightful observation that the relationship, the link between imperialism, slavery, and Christianity has been very much there. And he is actually, in a way, suggesting that Christianity actually played a very mediating role to moderate the impact of slavery. This is what he has said, and I think we can debate this point. And I'm just taking my reference from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So this is this one point that we should keep in mind that the scholarship of Bhimrao Ambedkar is actually very, very wide ranging, and it has been accessed through the comparative mode of scholarship. So the first point I made was that why there is no work on Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, very systematic conceptual work on Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar's conception of slavery. Second point, when we have wide-ranging scholarship available in Ambedkar in a very comparative mode, why we should take that comparative perspective on slavery into our account of scholarship. This is the second point. Now there is a third point. What has been specific conception of Dr. Ambedkar? Let me cite two quick fundamental propositions or stance he has taken. And this particular position is also popularly available in the Ambedkarite, Buddhist, Dalit imagination. I'm using three words, you can debate them. But that's my way of looking at it. Now, one stance he has taken is about, it's in Marathi, and I will just repeat this Marathi thing first. गुलामाला त्याच्या गुलामीची जाणीव करून द्या, तो बंड करून उठेल. You make the slave aware about his own slavery, and he means she as well. He or she will rise in rebel against the master who is actually enslaving the person. And the second one, he is about, the second stance is about, he's quoting Thucydides, a Greek philosopher, in his seminal book on what Congress and Gandhiji have done to the untouchables. Actually, this text opens up with this quotation. It may be your interest to be your master, but how can it be in our interest to be your slave? These are two very profound observations that Dr. Ambedkar is making. Now, what is our task? What is our intellectual responsibility? Since it is the Ambedkar Intellectual Summit, what is our intellectual responsibility? How do you decode it? How do you unfold it? Is there a conceptual tool to actually elaborate on this, and whether there is a possibility of doing it is the challenge that we have to confront. Now, so what is the how do you go ahead? Giving a conceptual account of this first position, that you have to make the slave aware about his slavery, and he will rise in rebellion against the master. Now, what Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting in this conceptually, theoretically, can you make any sense? Let me try and make any sense of this whole thing. I think Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting that awakening against the slavery, against domination, unfreedom, as we will define slavery as unfreedom, domination, subjugation, to rise against, to build up consciousness against these three baffling conditions of human being is not a natural thing available in the slave. That's the first point that we have to keep in mind, that Ambedkar is suggesting that it is not natural for the human being, a slave person, to rise against the master, and that consciousness has to be carefully cultivated. And therefore, second point in this unfolding could be that the reason, the subversive reason, is not available within the slave. The reason has to be brought from outside, and that's why Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting from outside that the slave has to be made aware about his own slavery, and he will fight against it. He will resist this and fight against it and destroy it. So reason has to be brought from outside. It can be from scholarship, it can be from demagogy, it can be from leaders, it can be from activists. And so we have to build up that necessary consciousness against this slavery with the force of reason. The reason which is about freedom, reason which is about autonomy, which is about a capacity to speak, capacity to communicate, and to appear in the public without any invisible sense of invisibility. Now, so the first proposition will have two components in it. One is that the sense of revolt, the consciousness of revolt or resistance is not automatic. It is not natural. It has to be, it depends on the availability of the reason within the person. And that reason is absent and it has to be brought from outside through the intervention of the others who are also liberated. A slave person cannot liberate another slave person. That's another important point. Can the slave enlighten another slave? That is not just simply possible because the reason as a common resource is absent from within the both of them. So that's why this position that Dr. Ambedkar is taking is so absolutely so important, and that we have to keep that in mind. So I'm making 3 points. One is it's not natural. Reason has to be brought from outside because one slave, and the reason has to be brought from outside from a person who's already enlightened, who's already free. And because the other slave, one slave can't actually liberate another slave. One slave cannot enlighten another slave. So you require to have force from outside. But it is also important to keep in mind that Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar also assumes that subversive consciousness, the possibility of subversive consciousness is already there. It is not absolutely absent. Reason is absent, but the consciousness is already there, waiting for some kind of a triggering of impact. That consciousness is actually dormant, and we have to invoke that consciousness so as to make the slave aware about his or her own conditions of slavery. Now, here I would like to take the help of my friend whose name is Professor Arun Patnaik from Hyderabad University. Now, he also has brought to my notice that now there's a double consciousness which brings Du Bois and Ambedkar on the same page. Both of them acknowledge that there's a double consciousness within a slave. One's consciousness of ignorance, for example, and one consciousness is the consciousness is that he is about to revolt, but he's not able to revolt, and that possibility is there. But his consciousness is already subjugated into the ideal of the master. So there's a double consciousness. One consciousness is actually subjugated, submerged in the ideal of the master, that he identifies himself with the master. The other consciousness is that he also has the resentment. He also wants to actually resist against this consciousness. So there's a double consciousness. And therefore, there is a possibility of the slave to become a rebel. I think this is one position that that we can elaborate conceptually, and we can actually we can actually bring all the dispersed insights of Ambedkar into one coherent conceptual whole. This is the first point on the first position. Now the second one is that it may be in your interest to be our master, but how can it be in our interest to be your slave? How do you actually make sense, conceptual, theoretical sense of this preposition? I have something to say about this. this first preposition, first position was suggested in nature. Because Ambedkar was suggesting to the people to intervene and the people to actually make this aware about it. So the second suggestion, second preposition is assertive. It is how can it be? He's actually interrogating. He's actually taking a very firm determinative position. He's so determined. How can it be in our interest? In the first sentence, in the first half of the sentence, is saying that it may be in your interest to be our slave or to be your master, but how can it be in our interest to be your slave? It's a very important preposition. So there's an interrogation, there's an assertion in this particular position that Dr. Ambedkar is taking. Now, what is the conceptual tool? What is the conceptual vocabulary that we can actually come on to our attention and build up a theoretical case for theory of slavery in Ambedkar? What is the conceptual vocabulary? So I would say there is one concept which is a contradictory concept of rationality. Now, this concept of rationality is not on the same plane. It is opposite, actually. Very simple. That it may be in the interest of the master to make people slaves. There is one kind of instrumental rationality that is already being played out in the assertions of the master. Master is actually using instrumentally the slave for the benefits of the master. So there's an instrumental rationality involved in this. That you are making somebody as an object of your own self, your own domination, your own interest. If it is the blacks, it will be the white master who will use blacks as the object to actually protect his own interests, to actually instantiate his own interests, to actually further his own interests. So there's a use value to this slave. Instrumentality means you are using somebody as an instrument to further your interests. So it's an instrumental rationality involved in this. So the master has an interest in the slave as long as the slave is being very supportive to his interests. Now, there is another end to the rationality. Even the slave also has a rationality when he is actually fighting to come out from the slavery condition. So the second half, that how can it be in our interest to be a slave, also has some kind of a underlying rationality which is different from the instrumental. It is the moral rationality. Why it is moral? Because slave doesn't want to use anybody instrumentally to liberate himself or herself from slavery. What is his universal aspiration? His universal aspiration is to become as free as everybody is free. And therefore it has a moral component. It is aimed at achieving that that position of freedom where a person is sharing this common good with every other person, including the master. In fact, in this moral rationality, it is in the interest of the master to free the slave. To free the slave. So that is a very, very important moral component of moral rationality that is being suggested in the second half of this particular proposition that Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting in his own work. Now, there is an interesting twist to this. I'm just raising this point, and this point is also available in Dr. Ambedkar, that does a slave or is instrumental rationality available to the slave, to a slave? The answer is yes. And it's a negative answer in a way. He or she also is using rationality instrumentally, but this rationality is something which is not which is not similar to Master's notion of instrumental rationality. It is a rationality which is actually which will define the protective nature of your ignorance and stupidity. Put it simply, a slave will use calculations very, very instrumentally in order to protect himself or herself. He or she will become stupid, act stupidly, or will feign ignorance only to save himself or herself. So there's also a calculation involved in this. And you can see that happening. People feign, they actually pretend to be ignorant. Those people who are actually under the domination of somebody will have to actually work out certain survival strategies. And one survival strategy is to actually work out the subaltern, as the subaltern would say, the feigning ignorance and pretending to be comic, pretending to be foolish. And this is in the self-interest of survival. It's not the survival with meaning. It's a bare survival. It's a bare survival. So do we have similar examples in today's politics, particularly Dalit politics? And I'm not answering this question. You must really work out. Do politicians feign ignorance and they become comic? They become a comical figure to behave in such a fashion that they are less than what they should be. So this is one interesting take that one can bring in while discussing the conception of slavery in Dr. Ambedkar. So I'm making 3 points in this second. One point is about that it may be in your interest to be our master. This is the first section. In this particular half sentence, Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting that there is an element of instrumental rationality that is at play, and the master is using slave as an instrument, as a thing, as an object to serve his own interest, economic interest, cultural interest, social. If it's a Brahmanical system, the untouchable will be used to actually defend, protect the purity status of the upper caste. If it is white, racist in the US context, then it will be the cultural domination. So that's and also economic domination. So this is the instrument. The second is in the second sentence, second half of the sentence. How can it be in our interest to be a slave? There is moral instrumentality, which is actually liberating, which has a liberating thrust, and the slave ceases to be slave. He interrogates slavery, and the basis of the interrogation is to invoke the moral rationality. That means gaining, enjoying, redeeming freedom as everybody does. So that is the second point. And the third one is about the the instrumental rationality also available to the slave for the survival, for the bare survival, not for the meaningful survival with dignity. And therefore, and feigning ignorance, behaving like stupid is the indication of that particular instrumental rationality. So this is the second. This is what we can summarize in terms of the two propositions that Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting. Now the third section, and then I'll stop here. What is the time now? Priyanshi, tell me, it is already 25 minutes are spoken, isn't it?
Yes, sir. It's been 7:30. You can
Yeah, let
continue
me
for
another
another
let,
15
let
minutes.
me take another 5 minutes more. Now,
Yeah, fine.
now there are people talk about slavery as a metaphor, and there are discussions about this, and that means there are different forms of slaveries. And I'm going to talk about modern forms of slavery, which is already available in Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar. And this is both. This is basically a form of mental slavery, a kind of a mental surrender to the dominant intellectual traditions. Now, and this happens after you are formally freed, like 1947, we are free in this country, or the American blacks are free after the Civil War, after they get the independence from the British colonialists. Now, are they really free? They are free in terms of their movement in the public sphere, in terms of their even in terms of their thinking, in terms of moving, participating in certain cultural life of the society. They are free, but are they really free? And then let me quote let me quote, you know, and I must quote Friedrich Nietzsche here, and his quotation will give us some idea to go very closer to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. What does Nietzsche say? And I want you to really focus on this. Pay close attention to this quotation. Now, Nietzsche says, man, and he says, man dance more when he is in chain. Man dances more when he is in chain. But he stops dancing when he's free. Now, you are formally free, but you have stopped dancing. You're dancing, you are actually rebelling against your slavery. Dancing means you actually, he's using the metaphor. But dancing means you are actually all the, when you are in chains and shackles, you dance, you know, you want to be free, you want to fight, and you want to resist, you want to struggle. Right? All that dancing takes place, you are in slave, you are chained. Once you are free, you stop dancing. As if your question of slavery is over. Babasaheb says, no, your questions are not over. They are actually multiplied, they become more complex. And so you begin to dance at the tune of others. Should I give more examples of political intellectuals, politicians? Everybody is dancing at the tune of others. And at this point in time, we must take due notice of this. You know, are we really dancing? Have we stopped dancing? Or are we dancing at the tune of others? So that is the question Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar is searching, writing 47, that during that period you find this regular reference on his in his writings and speeches. And how politicians, particularly the Dalit politicians, are actually dancing at the tune of the dominant parties. Now the question is, what is the how does it operate? What is the logic of this? What is the logic of this predicament where you are stopped dancing, or you are dancing at the tune of others? Let's say dancing, you stop dancing. Let's say, why you have stopped dancing? Maybe because you want to protect yourself, your own self, and you have lost the subversive nature of reason. You do not want to really associate yourself with the larger causes. You stop dancing. Now, the notion of power in the modern times actually produces different forms of slavery. Okay, asking for guidance is a mild form of slavery. I mean, dependence. Depending on somebody's reference is always problematic. Relying on somebody's patronage, a mild form of, I mean, you can give several examples to prove this point. But the point, the reference I would like to give, share with you is a reference to this question of power. You become a cog, an instrument in the power game of the dominant. And as Michel Foucault would say, you participate in this relay of power. What do I mean by relay of power? I mean, somebody's power, you become the cog. You take forward the interest of somebody, forgetting the interest of the society. The power, right from Delhi down to the villages, is not your power, not power of the people, power of somebody who's actually regulating that power game, power instrument. The lever of power is being regulated, dominated from somewhere else. And you are just actually participating in. That's a relay of power. So that is what, that's why you do not get, and Dr. Ambedkar's problem is this, that he says you become so much subservient to the dominant that you forget the interest of your own people, your power. The power, and you should really keep this in, the power which is not conscious of its own power. That's what he says. If you are conscious of your own power, we would have really fought the slavery condition. The power has to be conscious about its own power. It's very interesting quote that is giving. Now you can write a thesis on this actually. Power which is not aware about its own power is not a power, it actually is a slavery. And the politics in liberal society has actually reduced people to participate in this relay of power. You are actually being the instrument of somebody. Relay means that, you are actually that, in the relay, 400 meters relay, the baton is passed on from one to another, isn't it? But whose baton is this? That's the metaphor you're using. The baton. Relay means you are relaying. One athlete is giving baton to another and the other 400 meters. So that's it. That is how our leaders have become. And this has been actually voiced now time and again by Dr. Ambedkar in the realm of in politics. So I think this the metaphor slavery as metaphor is one important thing, but it becomes a real problem when you are actually performing the agenda or fulfilling the agenda of the masters at the concrete level. Slavery becomes articulable, evident, manifested at the concrete level. Otherwise, it's not slavery. And you are actually playing into the hands of people, participating in the game of power, and you are actually at the concrete level fulfilling, articulating their own interests. So slavery is equal to concreteness is the preposition that Dr. Ambedkar is suggesting. Okay, I will stop here. Let's take some more questions. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Gopal Guru sir. It was
I would like to
wonderful.
say, you said Mr. and then you said Gopal Guru and then sir. This conglomerate. So what is this? This is a very chimerical introduction. You must either use Mr. or you must use sir. Or you don't. You should. I would like to just use Gopal Guru. That's it.
Gopal, yeah. I'm sorry, Gopal Guru sir. Yeah, so thank you so much for this wonderful session. It was really overwhelming to know about the Dr. Ambedkar's conception on slavery, particularly by you you have showed us starting from the how Babasaheb has not been contextualized in scholarly work as the conception of his slavery is not included in the scholarly work, and many foreign scholars we have like Du Bois and many others. And you have also talked about the main conception of Babasaheb Ambedkar conception on slavery, how it has been developed in modern sense, and how you compare the past slavery and the Babasaheb conception on modern slavery. as Babasaheb was, the very important point I would say, गुलामाला गुलामाची जाणीव करून देणे, त्यानंतर त्याला तो दंड काढून उडेल. तर so all the his conception, the preposition he was trying to say, trying to mention, is concluded in this particular sentence, that we have to tell the slave that he is a slave, and then he will revolt. So there, you included many propositions that has to be included to make a slave particular conscience about the his slavery, and he has to you also delve into the topic of uh, how a slave can become a powerful and go into the relay of power, that will make him powerful, and the will smash this slavery, the system of slavery. And I would like to request Priyansi, if there is any there is any point if you would like to add on.
Thank you so much for enlightening speech, sir. And definitely
You come onto
slavery.
you come onto the screen. I will just disappear, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you come onto the screen.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
thank you so much for your enlightening speech. And definitely slavery is a mindset. And if we want to overcome this slavery, which is still there in a formal or informal way, there are many people of our community who are not know about their rights. So if we want to overcome the slavery, we have to be with a mindset, with a strong mindset. And if you guys have any questions, please post on the comment box, or you can unmute yourself and ask directly to the sir. Thank you.
Yes, Arif, you can go ahead.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Thanks a lot, respected Gopal Guru. As you said that you can't say sir, so I'm
Where are you? Who
accepting
is speaking? Who is speaking? Please let me know.
It's Arif. I'm from Jammu and Kashmir. I'm a student of political science, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for a very enlightening and lucid lecture, and also giving morphology and anatomy of slavery. My question, sir, is when denial is based on consent, out of will, you are willingly giving subordination to some structural inequalities or institutional injustices. So till then, slavery is celebrated. Slavery, from your perspective, slavery is celebrated. But from what when you said in the very analysis of your lecture, from Ambedkarite's perspective, when you educate, when you have a kind of organizational structure, and then you agitate, you begin to challenge the slavery. And slavery as a tool, physical as well as cultural. Cultural slavery is inseparable from physical slavery. So my question here is, sir, how far we have been successfully combating the cultural aspect of the slavery, although we may have successful to some extent in challenging the physical tools of slavery. How far we have been able to challenge the cultural aspects of slavery from Ambedkarite's perspective? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for your very detailed question, and very so you are raising several points. One is that when denial is based on consent, then I think then there is a problem of one is almost celebrating slavery. That is the condition. That is the initial condition. Every slavery, I mean, as I mentioned, religion plays a very important role actually in smoothing, moderating the outrage. and then in that master becomes a very benevolent benefactor. So you don't have to raise your voice against the master. Master becomes a very benign patronage against whom you can't just it will be a blasphemy to fight against him. And there's a noise there. So as I mentioned to you, when the consciousness of the slave is processed through the ideal of the master, I think then the slave would develop this mentality that it is better to be in slavery than to be in outside slavery. So there is that problem there. But the human being as a thinking being, as a being which would always look for full realization of the fullness of his life, he will fight that. He will have a sense of comparison. If others are not in slavery, why I am in slavery? That why question will always be there. This is the Ambedkarian question. Others are enjoying life. Why can't I do it? I have to also lead the life of dignity and autonomy. So why can't I do it? As an individual, I have got that equal right to lead the life as others are doing. So, so that is one way of looking at the when the master becomes an ideal and you are rooting your consciousness through that, and there's no way out from that consciousness. But then slave doesn't, and the history shows that the slave doesn't really perfect and this slavish consciousness. So he or she will always fight historically as and when the conditions are historically proficient to push the people outside. And that's why the first condition that Dr. Ambedkar said, use, what is this order? Educate. Educate yourself against what? Against your own enslavement. The structures that actually tend to enslave you, you have to actually discover those structures and then fight against them. And I think work out a strategy against them. So education is that. And education is going to gain the understanding, consciousness, and then you have to actually organize that consciousness and then agitate after that. So that's the other. There is a good sequence in this: educate, agitate, educate, organize, and agitate. That should be the sequence. Now, so how to fight cultural slavery is the big problem. You have the very strong sense of imitation. You want to imitate the cultural life of other people. It means you do not really set up cultural norms for yourself. I mean, some organization did that. Rastafari in England did that. Black people, the cultural movement did that. The jazz, the cultural, everything is so different. And actually, and it is said in the black literature that it is the white who are actually following the cultural style. So it's a reversal. Is it happening in our country? We have no idea. Have the Dalits become a reference point culturally? We have no idea. You have to answer that question. So maybe in some parts they are. Now, of course, Babasaheb Ambedkar has become the reference point for all the people, which is a very good thing. But this has taken such a long time. It should have been much earlier, but it's not a bad news. It's a good news. So this is it. You need to really develop not a weak sense of self-evaluation, very strong sense of self-evaluation, and then only you can fight this. What do I mean by strong sense of evaluation? That I will actually set up the norms which are humanitarian norms, which are culturally very, very less offensive. Those norms will have to be evolved, and instead of imitating somebody's norm, you must have a strong evaluation to develop other norms which are actually universalizable. The norms can be universalized. That is the challenge to fight cultural slavery.
Yeah. So Sagar competent.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Professor. So in post-Ambedkarite Dalit movement, the last point in your talk was power has to be conscious of power.
Of
So the
itself.
exam, sorry?
Power has to be conscious of itself. Power means power. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So the example of Kanshiram in post-Ambedkarite era, post-Ambedkar era, the journey from Dalit to Bahujan in his praxis or in his political language. So that, though that was a non-academic discourse. So talking of slavery and assertion of for power. So is it related consciousness? Example of related consciousness.
Related relative consciousness. Yeah, I mean, you have a different notions of power. The power you have to be conscious of. A power has to be conscious of itself, its own power. That means it's not conscious when you are actually submitting to somebody's dictation. Your power to be free is not sufficient. You are still being dictated by others. Now, so that's a very, very comprehensive statement that Dr. Ambedkar made. And this statement, I'm sorry, does not fit into Kanchiram's conception of power. It's something different. I don't think Mr. Kanchiram is doing this kind of conception of power which is conscious of its own power. Is not, I don't think is actually basically through, I'm not talking about this. There are other scholars who have done this. And there are some scholars who are speaking about this thing. So I will avoid that. But the power to have a very strong sense of the self as a human being, which is actually aimed at celebrating its own humanness. That's the power. And that's the power which is non-negotiable power. There is no instrumentality. You bring some people from some caste, some kind of a conglomeration of Bahujan is not a power that Ambedkar is suggesting. Your power is actually something which is non-negotiable. It should not really negotiate, compromise with your own dignity of individual and also collectivity. And you will fight. And there's some kind of authenticity to this power. When you gain authenticity to power, which is non-compromisable, then that becomes a power which is conscious of its own power. If you apply these terms, the conditionalities, you will then evaluate what kind of power our politicians are really doing. So that's it.
Nivesh Kumar, you can go ahead.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So my question is, as you mentioned, master-servant relationship with Brahminical system. Can we map it sovereignty versus sovereignty? And this material object as a slavery in today's technical accept, where MNC used his data to penetrate, to as a tool use a material object as an individual. Can be demonstrate its point in technological point of view as an individual who uses social media as a slavery for material object for MNCs, top MNC companies.
Yeah, means no, there is some kind of a contract between the two. Now, in terms of a classical slavery which is classical, slavery which is historical, not contemporary, there was no contract, so to say. They were just roped into all these blacks. Migrants were actually forced into accepting the conditions which are not in their favor. There was absence of contract. But here there's some kind of a contract. There's some kind of a contract between the two. Yeah, but the contract the relationship, as you very rightly said, is asymmetrical. I mean, there's a contract, but the terms of the contracts are more in favor of the multinational than the people who are actually working for them. That's so you said you can say it's there's a lots of autonomy, there's a lot of independence, freedom. There's an element of unfreedom, and so but you compromise, you actually adjust because your own interests are involved in this. You prefer to be silent than to be vocal because your interests are involved in this.
And so what about sovereignty and sovereignty with relation with master and servant relationship?
Sovereignty of between master and which master slave? Are you talking about the Hegelian master slave relationship?
Is sovereignty versus sovereignty.
Sovereignty. So can you explain to me? I mean, I'm not getting your point.
As we can say, na, ki sovereignty is a top layer point, as sovereignty is a top, as a like a ape. Son is the of a father. Son is like treat us sovereignty, and father like treat us sovereignty. Who conduct his rules within father.
Yeah, that's a very simple. Yeah, true. I mean, sovereignty means you have to be that Buddha would say that you have to be the master of your own self. You have to achieve the sovereignty rather than suzerainty. Some kind of a pattern, some kind of a inheritance, some kind of a continuity. That's it. And also you need not be the slave of customs, usages, traditions. You have to actually liberate yourself from all those. So that's one manifestation of slavery. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So there is one question in chat box by Nil Kamal from Gujarat. She's working on science education and laboratory studies in STS field. She would like to ask that in the presence of Varnashrama, how can we end slavery in current time?
What is Varnashrama now? What is the nature of Varnashram Dharma now? And what
Sir, Varnashrama is as it is now, like Brahman, Kshatriya, Shudra, Ati Shudra.
But
so,
what is that? So what is our society working on the Varnashrama system?
Yes, sir. And especially for women, it is working like Varnashrama, like very low position.
What about caste? What is the relationship between Varna and caste? Varnas have converted themselves into elaborate system of casteism. So you have patriarchy in every caste. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if there are 1,000 castes, there's a different notion of. So slavery for women. Of course. Thanks for raising this point about women. I just did not elaborate on this. So I think the slavery, women's slavery, of course, is the big chapter that Dr. Ambedkar is writing about. And so a caste system has actually given an elaborate, more diffuse the nature of patriarchy. So you get different kinds of patriarchies in different caste systems in the degree of oppression and coercion. But that doesn't mean to say doesn't mean that some patriarchy is good, some patriarchy is bad. No, patriarchy itself is bad in totality, in its essence, and that actually they put women into slavery mode all the time. But the question that one has to raise is how far women really know this, and what are the mechanisms, instrumentalities, or Foucauldian governmentalities that really prevent women from actually prevent men and women from coming to the realization that they are being undermined, subjugated, objectified by patriarchy. There are subtle ways of doing it, and I think scholars have done wonderful work on this. Different ways of subjugations, and taking cue of from Manu Dharma Shastra and all that. People do very well in terms of patriarchal domination.
Thank you, sir.
So there is one more question from Amal. How does one spread the awareness in scenario where the slavery, which is misquoted as a higher platform of spirituality, bhakti or devotion, where the slave never realized that he or she is under slavery?
Yeah, that's it. Well, he's answering the whole question. Somebody is answering the question that he has raised or she has raised. I don't know, isn't it? Actually, in same traditions and bhakti tradition, there is a realization that somebody is a slave, like Chokha Mela, being treated badly. But the interrogation doesn't take place in the realm of reality, the real time, the historical time, but in the spiritual time. And that's that is another way of actually making people aware or conscious about their own bad behavior, so to say, with the human being.
Yeah. So there is one more by Govind. When we look at Dr. Ambedkar's allied conceptualization of slavery, are we taking a Marxist positionality to understand his work?
What do you mean by Marxist position? Let's ask him. Where is Marxist position is materialistic, in slavery is reduced to materialism, isn't it? What does he mean by that? Please let me know. Mr. Govind? Labor exploitation, yes.
Slavery.
Yeah, this part of it, as I mentioned to you, slaves were brought into different parts of the continent because the planters from the south wanted to extract more labor from them. And I think, and then it is said in the narratives of the labor, that the black labor was much more efficient and steady to be exploited than the Indian labor. Even Dr. Ambedkar says so, the Roman Empire, Roman slavery. And he also says that, in the difference between the Indian slavery and the Roman slavery is that there was the vested interest of the master to elevate, allow slave to gain some knowledge, not absolute knowledge, some knowledge that will be helpful in yielding more work from the slave. But in our case, that we never actually promoted. I mean, this is what Dr. Ambedkar says. We did not show any interest in elevating their skill or in augmenting the skill of labor. So exploitation, of course, is the part of it. Labor exploitation is the fundamental thing in that. So why should it be Marxist? It should be Marxist. Why should it be Marxist? Can't it be Ambedkarite or Fuleite? Okay.
Yeah,
Any other
so there is no question. Yeah.
No, sir, there are no any more questions.
Yes, because 8 o'clock is the time now. Some other speaker is waiting for now.
Yes.
Yeah.
From 8:30, there is another session. So
yes.
Thank you so much, sir. And thank you everyone
Thank you very
for
much.
joining
I
this
enjoyed. Yeah.
evening.
Okay. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
And if you want to add any final point, please do that.
No. I have finished. I finished talking and I covered almost all the points I wanted to cover. And thank you for raising points and making discussions very, very interesting. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Bye.
Okay, thank you everyone. We have next session at 8:30. You can join that, and that is assisted by Jesus Kairos on untouchability as a political idea, political thought of B.R. Ambedkar. Please join that session as well. Thank you. Jai Bhim.
Thank you, Jai Bhim.